presentation in English. Yes.
Eu vou diminuir o meu vídeo, mas eu vou estar no chat acompanhando. Qualquer dificuldade, só escrever no chat que eu posso atender os senhores, tá?
Tá certo, obrigado.
Obrigado a você.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is an honor for the BRICS and the University of São Paulo Law School to have again this year in our BRICS seminar Ambassador Suresh Reddy of India in Brasilia. Ambassador Suresh Reddy was already with us in the seminar in October 2020. At that time, you had shortly arrived in Brasilia since September 2020. So, Ambassador, it is a pleasure to be with you again. Ambassador Suresh Reddy has had a distinguished career since he joined the Indian Foreign Service in 1991. Prior to coming to Brasilia, he had served as additional secretary, coordinating relations with Europe and Central Asia, and was earlier Sous Sherpa to G20, to BRICS, and to IPSA. In the ministry, he was director and joint secretary, dealing with neighboring countries and later with ASEAN. He has also served in Cairo, Muscat, Abu Dhabi, Islamabad, and later as India's ambassador to Iraq and ASEAN. So, Ambassador Reddy, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Professor Paulo. It is such a pleasure to see you again and
Yes.
digitally with you and with the center. What you said is interesting. The last time we met was in October. And as you correctly pointed out, since that October to now, for me, it is 1 year in Brazil. And I should say I developed a better understanding of Brazil, the role played by Brazil globally, in the importance which Brazil commands, and also the importance of Brazil-India partnership, and the role of BRICS and how Brazil is approaching BRICS. So this has been quite an educative year for me, quite an informative year for me, and I would like to really thank my friends in Brazil for having welcomed me so warmly and given me this wonderful experience over the last 1 year. And part of this experience was my interaction with you and the center, for which I must thank our good friend Ricardo for bringing us together and helping me to understand the excellent work which the center is doing. I think today this event, this conference has become, it's the 5th year it's being conducted, and I think it has become a very important event in the BRICS calendar itself. It has really helped to spread awareness about BRICS, and it has helped to have high-quality debates, high-quality discussions on BRICS and the issues which are of importance to all of us. Now, as we talk today, I would like to start with something very significant which happened recently, which is on the 21st of October, last week. We completed 1 billion doses of vaccinations in India. 1 billion doses is a really large number. we are talking of almost 1/6 of the global population, which India has. And so 1 billion, you can visualize it. We are talking of almost 5 times the population of Brazil, maybe 3 times the population of the US, and similarly 3 times the population of Europe, etc. And in this process, we not only vaccinated, we gave 1 billion doses in India, but we also provided almost 66 million doses to over 95 countries, including Brazil, including UK, including Canada and other countries. So it has really been a very significant year for the past 365 days, because in the process, we also, our status as a global pharmacy, that India is a pharmacy for the world, got reinforced, because we provided drugs to more than 150 countries during this pandemic. And we are also significant partners for Brazil in the field of meeting the pharmaceutical requirements in the field of healthcare. Now, this pandemic has really reiterated the importance of partnerships. It has reiterated the importance of the supply chains. And importantly, it has introduced a new concept of what is called the global, completely new agenda, a new global agenda. And many issues have come to the surface. Many new issues have come to the surface, which have become important areas of focus. Now, this is what you call the Black Swan event. The Black Swan event in diplomacy has been really speaking the pandemic. Now, interestingly, what this pandemic has done is that it has reshaped, as I said, the global dynamics. It has reshaped their diplomacy. It has reshaped approaches of many countries to various issues. Now, this reshaping was happening a little bit before the pandemic, but this pandemic has only accelerated. It has also proved the ineffectiveness of the multilateral system. It has proved that today the multilateral system is not readily equipped to deal with such challenges, and new approaches and new agreements are required to deal with these challenges. And it was in this context that the role of BRICS becomes important. The BRICS was established essentially recognizing that the existing setup is not adequate to meet the challenges which we face today. The institutions that today are global, essentially what you call the Bretton Woods institutions, whether they're the IMF or the World Bank or whether it is the United Nations, they're all established when almost 75 years ago. And so today, we believe that they do not reflect today's realities and they need to be reformed. And it was one of these reasons why the BRICS countries came together to join hands in making this reform process happen. In fact, it was this which resulted also in the G20 being created. Because when the financial crisis happened in 2008, the G7 countries realized that they will not be able to address these challenges without having the leading developing economies also partnering with them. Now you see, look at our own partnerships which have been emerging in the recent times. You look at India, for example. Today, we are a partner in Quad. We are a part of the Quad, as commonly it is called. And we are also a partner in the BRICS. And similarly, we are members in the ACO. And we are also members in the East Asia Summit. And we are concerned about the developments in Indo-Pacific. We believe it is of immediate relevance to India. And similarly, we are also concerned about developments in the Middle East. I mean, you may be aware that recently our minister, he had participated in a very exclusive meeting of foreign ministers of Israel, UAE, and the US to discuss about developments in the Middle East. And when you look at also the partnerships which India is making today, is something different. Is something completely different from the past. For example, when you look at the partnership with Denmark, we have a green strategic partnership. With the EU, with the European Union, we have a comprehensive connectivity partnership focusing on digital, energy, transport. And then with the UK, we have a global innovation partnership. And we also have a partnership on new and emerging technologies, and also a strategic clean energy partnership, and a climate action and finance mobilization with the US. Now, if you look at these partnerships reflect the contemporary challenges. These partnerships reflect the effort oriented towards finding solutions for the contemporary challenges which we face. And these are the solutions which the international institutions not able to provide. The multilateral system is not adequately equipped to provide these solutions. And this is where, again, the BRICS countries become important. They become important because we are the largest, some of the largest economies in the world, and we are the countries which are also most affected by these challenges such as the climate change, and who are going to be directly impacted by the outcomes of the COP26, which is going to be happening in Glasgow. And so in this context, the discussions within the BRICS also have been equally important, have been quite substantive, and have been quite critical in terms of shaping the policy approach, because we recognize that it is a global challenge and we need to coordinate our approaches. We need to strengthen cooperation so that we're able to address these challenges in a meaningful manner. Now, the BRICS summit was held on 9th September and chaired by our Prime Minister. This was the third time when India has chaired the BRICS summit. The theme for our chairmanship for this year was what we call the 4 C's: cooperation, continuity, consolidation, and consensus. Now, cooperation, evidently, because we felt that we need to strengthen the cooperation, but also expand because of the emerging challenges which we're all confronted with. Like, for example, the cooperation on COVID, on addressing the pandemic. That was a new and emerging area of cooperation. And continuity, evidently, we desire to continue the significant progress already made in various areas. And at the same time, consolidation, because we felt that many activities are happening, but it's time we took a step back and consolidated the achievements which we have had so far. And finally, consensus, which is very important. As 5 large economies, when we come together, the consensus becomes critical, enabling us to arrive at decisions and make progress in what we are trying to achieve. Our priorities for the chairmanship this year were, number 1, reform of the multilateral system, then counter-terrorism cooperation. Third was digital technology for achieving the sustainable development goals. And fourth, and most important, was the people-to-people exchanges. Now, why these 4 topics would be the question. When there are so many issues which are confronting us, why these 4 topics? Number 1, reform of the multilateral system. As I mentioned, the pandemic only reminded us of the ineffectiveness of the existing multilateral system in dealing with these challenges. And we believed that time has come to expedite, to accelerate this reform process. And in this context, it's very important to note that for the first time, we issued a joint statement on reform of the multilateral institutions, to which both China and Russia were also party to this joint statement. Why is this important? Because we are talking of reform of the United Nations, we are talking of reform of the associated institutions. And both China and Russia are naturally very important members in that, being members of the UN Security Council. And so we are very delighted that they join hands with us in agreeing to the reform process that we have been pushing for over the years. And then comes the counter-terrorism cooperation. In this, obviously, today, when you look at the developments in the past of Syria, of Iraq, and today in the case of Afghanistan, naturally, all of us are quite concerned because these developments go beyond the borders. These developments have significant impact on all our countries. And importantly, these developments have significant impact on our own economic progress and prosperity. Hence, we felt we needed to strengthen cooperation in this sector also. And the third point, the third priority was the digital technology for achieving the sustainable development goals. Now, India has been a leader in realizing, in using technology for achieving our goals, our development goals. And today, the change in India is what we call the digital transformation, is what is happening today in India. And we believe we are far ahead of many countries in this digital transformation. And this has enabled better governance and more inclusive governance. And it has enabled the ordinary man in the street, whether he is in the city or whether he is in the countryside, to have access to the government services equally. While that was not the case in the past, but today, every citizen of the country has equal access to the government services. And also, when you look at large number of challenges which we are confronted with, we believe it is a technology which is going to provide us the solutions. And in this context, the digital technology becomes quite critical in helping us to realize the Sustainable Development Goal agenda of 2030. And last and important, the priority was the people-to-people exchange. This evidently it goes without saying that we need to strengthen this, and the exchanges which is happening between our countries is not really adequate. When I look at the number of Brazilians who visit India, I do find it's a small number. And similarly, when I find the number of Indians who come to Brazil, it is also a small number. Sometimes it's a question of chicken or egg. Do we have more flights so that then more people will start coming? Or do the people start going first so that there can be more flights? We can never have a satisfactory answer, because at the end of the day, it is also a commercial decision. But this is something which is quite important in terms of promoting the people-to-people exchanges. Now, what has been the success of our chairmanship? I believe it has been quite a significant year for the BRICS, and quite a lot of success was achieved jointly. It is not India's success, but it's a success of all the members of BRICS, and that has been our approach, that we work as a unit, and our success is a shared success. And when you look at it, some of the key success are, for example, we have signed the remote sensing satellite constellation agreement, essentially working to establish satellites for our common and sharing the data from the satellites for our common good, and similarly launching the BRICS agricultural research platform. Now, India and Brazil are two large agricultural producing countries, and so you can visualize the benefit which we will have by having this joint agricultural research platform. And this is important, especially when we are talking of food security, the challenge which we will all have in the future because of the climate change again. And we also launched the BRICS Alliance for Green Tourism, essentially to promote sustainable tourism and ecotourism. And of course, at the end of the day, we are committed to promoting trade, we are committed to promoting economic partnerships and commercial exchanges. And hence, we have concluded the BRICS Customs Agreement. And there's an interesting, innovative idea which has been agreed, which is an agreement to create a BRICS platform for digital public goods. Essentially, this is something for the benefit of not only for the BRICS countries, but for all the developing countries around the world who will be able to access this platform and benefit from the systems, from the processes, from the, as we say, for where we use the digital technology for our common good. And all the developing countries will be able to benefit from that. For example, in India, we launched this CoWIN application. This application was launched for tracking the pandemic, and it was also launched to track the vaccination process. And we have made it freely available to all our friends around the world. So today, many developing countries have approached India, and they have acquired this technology, and they're also implementing it in their countries. And so that is an example of this digital public good for the benefit of all of us. Now, many meetings have happened. The number of meetings have been increased as the topics are becoming wider and broader in scope and depth. But some of the important and interesting meetings was one, for example, we had a BRICS meeting on Digital Health Summit. This is something new because you see, the pandemic has again reiterated the need for innovative approaches to healthcare. The traditional approaches will no longer work because of the large scale impact of the pandemic. And this is where the Digital Health Summit was quite important, where we were able to use digital technology to meeting the needs of the public in terms of healthcare and providing quality, affordable, and accessible healthcare to everybody, to every citizen in the country. So that was a very important and significant meeting which took place first time under India's chairmanship. And I already mentioned about the Green Tourism Alliance. That is something which is going to be significant because today we countries are some of the largest recipients of travelers, of tourists like Brazil is one of the world's largest recipient of tourists. And similarly, India and China and other countries, we are some of the largest outgoing outflow of tourists. And hence this Green Alliance was very important from tourism perspective. And we also launched BRICS vaccine discussions to see how we can jointly produce vaccines. And also the establishment of the BRICS Vaccine Research and Development Center. Now, essentially, what our Prime Minister summed up the role which BRICS can play, which is that BRICS can build back, help the world to build back resiliently, innovatively, credibly, and sustainably. I think that really sums up the role which BRICS can play. And you see, the question which many people ask is BRICS still relevant, and what has been its big achievement, etc., etc. I think when you really look at it, as I mentioned, a good example of a success is the bank, the New Development Bank, they commonly called the BRICS Bank. And I'm not sure if how many friends in Brazil are really aware of what has been the contribution of this BRICS Bank to Brazil. So far, the bank has supported 14 projects in Brazil, totaling almost $5 billion. And what is interesting is that these projects include small municipalities, like, for example, the municipality of Sorocaba for transportation, municipality of Teresina for improving their education infrastructure, then improvement of transportation network in northern region, and similarly for the power transmission lines. And it is something which is helping to make a difference at the grassroots level by even giving low-cost funding to the municipalities and enabling them to undertake the renovation, the upgradation, the improvement work which is required in the municipalities. And an important aspect of this funding was that during this COVID, during the pandemic, the bank had allocated $1 billion to each of the 5 member countries for supporting the pandemic-related work to address the pandemic, and also another $1 billion to support the economic recovery. So we're talking of $2 billion for almost all the 5 member countries, which has helped to speed up this recovery process. And interesting and an important development during this period was also the admission of the new members. The United Arab Emirates, Uruguay, and Bangladesh became the new members of the bank, in addition to the existing 5 members. So that's a very significant development. It shows the maturity of the bank, and it shows the role which the bank is going to be playing as the leading development partner for the emerging economies, for the developing countries. Today, when you look at it in terms of its success, I believe in terms of the systems, in terms of the process, in terms of the approach to the projects, and in terms of the funding percentage for the renewable energy, for the infrastructure projects, I think this bank has done far better than the World Bank or many other development institutions. Even though it is a very young bank, but its record has been outstanding. And in fact, it has become a role model for many of the other developing banks, if I may say so. And going forward, the BRICS countries are going to be playing even more critical role, because as the challenges become more and more global, and as the challenges become more and more frequent. I mean, when you look at the pandemic itself is, this year, okay, we had, but even earlier before this, we had the SARS, before that we had the Ebola, and we have been having one after another, and the frequency is increasing. And so the need and necessity for strengthening this cooperation has only increased. And this has only increased, especially when we look at the lack of ability of the existing multilateral institutions to handle these challenges. And this also becomes important when you look at what happened in the pandemic. Almost every country was closing the door. That even today we are looking at kind of all kinds of travel restrictions being placed, and making it a bit more difficult for the people to travel, or for the business to happen, or for commercial exchanges, for trade to happen. I mean, today we are facing a serious challenge because of the impact of the pandemic. And in this context, the cooperation between the BRICS countries have become even more important. And today, when you look at the global landscape, I think the global landscape has changed. It has completely, it is not, truly speaking, it is not a unipolar world, it is not a bipolar world or a multipolar. But today, rather, it has become a dynamic partnership. That is what it has become today. That we all form partnerships with our countries based on the issues, and we all form partnerships where we align on issues, really speaking. And that is what, as I mentioned, when you look at the kind of partnerships which today India is having, that we are having on one hand the Quad, on the other hand, we are also members of BRICS or ACO. And similarly, we are partners in the East Asia Summit. And we are also partners in so many other regional groupings. And it essentially reflects this idea that we cooperate wherever we can cooperate for our common good. And we also cooperate on issue-based, on issue-based approach. And for example, if you look at this pandemic, India and South Africa, India had floated the idea of the waiver of the TRIPS waiver to enable all countries to produce vaccine. And this is quite actively supported by many countries, both within BRICS and outside, because they recognize that, yes, this is something which was needed when there was a severe shortage of availability of vaccine. And how do we increase the production of vaccine? Only by enabling other countries to have access to the technology, for which this waiver was important. And that was something which was very important and which was actively supported by many countries around the world, and especially within the BRICS also, including Brazil. They started to support this initiative. And you see, when you look at the shape of things to come, the future is going to be digital, really speaking. I mean, we are already here in the digital world when you look at today, right now, our interaction, right? And in this digital space, I think today India is a leader. Brazil is a leader. I mean, I interact with their startups. I interact with their various organizations involved in this innovation ecosystems. And I'm very impressed to see the kind of startups which are emerging in Brazil. And India, of course, as you know, is the second largest, what we call the startup center for the world. And here I'm very happy to say that even within the first 6 months of this year, almost 9 startups in India became unicorns, reflecting the economic strength and the economic depth of India. And similarly, Brazil is also growing at a rapid pace with its startups. And I was really compliment them on the success, on the spirit of entrepreneurship, which I'm finding in Brazil. And I believe this is where we can jointly make a difference to the world also. Because when you look at the Sustainable Development Goals agenda, unless countries like India and Brazil achieve them, the world will not be able to realize it, because we have a significant share of the world's population. And similarly, the challenges our people face are very common, similar between India and Brazil. And so the role played by the startups, the role played by this technology in addressing those challenges becomes quite critical. And these are the solutions which other countries can follow, other countries can take to their homes and use them to find solutions for their own challenges. And that is why going forward to the future, I believe countries like India and Brazil have a very significant role to play. And so I'm very happy, to be here and to be part of this strategic partnership between India and Brazil. And in this process also to be part of this BRICS and to be here with you in joining this conversation. Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Reddy. It is certainly in a growingly interdependent world, the 4 C's you mentioned are more needed than ever. And it is true, we are still in the middle of the pandemics, but we have made substantial progress. As we had a seminar last October, there were not yet vaccines. And now, as you mentioned, India alone has vaccinated 1 billion people in your country and exported substantial numbers of doses to several other countries, including Brazil. So if you will be kind enough to accept my invitation to send a written chapter of the presentation you made, we intend to make a volume of the presentations made in this seminar. as we did, and we have already published 2 volumes of precedent years. So we would be honored to have a chapter written by you for our forthcoming volume on with the papers presented in the 2021 seminar. So this is, we'll be glad if you can accept our invitation. And it is something which we hope to have the opportunity of welcoming you at the Law School of the University of São Paulo along next year. Maybe the next year's seminar we'll be able to do it presentially, so viva voce may be more interesting to exchange views and to talk more freely. Happily enough, and that's thanks to Ibrachina and the staff that helped us with all the operational, and also to the BRICS team. They have been doing a outstanding work organizing all these panels, and this is an honor to have you again, Ambassador Reddy, and we very much appreciate your attention, your time, and your contribution to our seminar, and hope to develop our work together. So thank you so much again, and hopefully we can have another opportunity to work together in a very near future.
Thank you so much, and I'll be very happy to send it in writing, as you mentioned. It's my privilege to be part of this, and I look forward to it.
Thank you so much. So, yeah. And then I will. Namaste, Ambassador Reddy, and then and tomorrow morning at 9 we have a next panel in our BRICS seminar, and this will be the 4th day of this year's seminar. So thank you so much again, and hope to see you soon. Yeah. Bye-bye.